Good morning to our listeners here on Long Island's most listened to radio station, Walk 97.5. My name is Dan Leveler, president of Suffolk County's largest independent labor union, Suffolk AME. It's a pleasure to welcome you back to Suffolk Matters, where Suffolk County meets Suffolk AME. Last month, the legislative session in Albany wrapped up, and we're very pleased to have our special guest today in the studio, New York State Senate Majority Leader John Flanagan. He represents the 2nd District of New York State Senate, which includes Smithtown and portions of Brookhaven and Huntington. Leader Flanagan is a friend to labor and a longtime friend of Suffolk AME. Welcome to Suffolk Matters.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on.
It's great to have you here. So there's a number of things I think we can talk about, and I certainly want to get to all of that. But can you start with maybe giving us a little bit about your history, where you came from, how you got to where you are? Let's just, tell people who you are and where you come from.
Well, I've lived in Suffolk County all my life from the ripe young age of 57. My children, Ashley, Sean, and Jake, are 30, 28, and almost 25. My family's from the area. I've spent my entire life here. Got my law degree here, finished up at Toro Law School, and I've served in the legislature for 32 years, 16 years in the New York State Assembly, and 16 years in the New York State Senate. Wow.
So you really have seen and participated and done quite a bit over your career.
No question about it. I've been very fortunate. Today, as you well know, being in government isn't always the easiest thing, but sure. I always say I'm very proud to be an elected official, very proud to be a public servant, very proud to be a senator, and even much prouder to have the opportunity to serve as the leader of the New York State Senate. And not just for Suffolk County or Long Island, but for the state of New York.
State of New York, absolutely. And, that's a great lead into one of the questions that I had. Maybe not everyone understands quite the amount of difficulty this last session represented. There was some last-minute switch-ups, and things got bottlenecked for a little while, and there was a lot on you that had to get done, and probably not the easiest circumstance to deal with. And, maybe if you could just talk a little bit about, the trials and tribulations of the last few weeks of session and trying to get things done.
Yeah, I think it's a backdrop. And I actually said this tonight that we finished session, formally finished session. I had said if we all sat down in January, if you and I sat down in January, right, we had a book that showed what was going to happen.
Right.
Neither one of us ever would have believed, this could have possibly happened. No. I mean, there's no way. So even with a wealth of experience, not just me, but my colleagues,
right,
you try and figure out, where are things going to go? What's going to happen in the budget? We had generally worked fairly well with the governor, demonstrating time and time and time again that we know how to govern.
Right.
Well, immediately after the budget, the governor came and to a number of the Democrats, said, you can't do this anymore, you got to come back in the fold. That happened. We had the Attorney General resign in disgrace. Wow, we had Tom Croce go away to military service, which let us down one member. But, look, I think through and through, I'm very grateful to have the opportunity. We've demonstrated time and time again that we know how to lead, know how to govern. We did a lot of good things for people in the public sector.
Sure.
And I'm never going to apologize for the work that we do.
Right.
I think we try very hard. My colleagues from Long Island are terrific people to work with. So
absolutely.
I would say the consistency is that we kept our eye on the ball. And I do have to say, I think my own style helped. I'm not adversarial. I'm not confrontational. Tell me what you want to get done. Let's figure out how to get there.
Yeah, and I certainly agree. And again, when you say you do a lot for Suffolk County and the entire state of New York, because of the adversity towards those last few weeks, there was a bunch of things that were very important to a lot of people. And I know there was some things that we spoke about that were important down in Suffolk County. And we knew at the time in talking with you, it wasn't a slam dunk walk in the park thing. You understood our position. You wanted to be helpful, but there was going to be a greater need to gain consensus from a broader group, and I think that you've been very bipartisan, willing to work with the other side when the issue and the solution are sensible, but you've also been very firm when you think something is wrong. But I do have to say that was an amazing feat those last few weeks in session.
So if you look at a scale of complexity, say 1 is easy, 10 is hard.
Yeah.
This was like a 23 or 24. No one could have expected any of this stuff. And yet we got a lot of stuff done. Things are important to Suffolk County. And sometimes, people don't often see this. It's what you stop as much as what you advance. So there were things that were put out there that would have been detrimental to Long Island, to Suffolk County, to public employees. Mm-hmm. I look at the work that your organization does. I think of the caliber of the people involved. You guys actually have a very unique union, in my opinion, because you got everybody.
Sure, yeah.
It's like you can say, all right, they have police. They have firefighters.
Right.
You guys have crossing guards, lab techs. You have
doctors,
caseworkers. Yeah, I mean,
ditch
you
diggers.
have
Yes, everything in between.
Yes, so you clearly cover the spectrum. And the other thing too, I think, just looking at the compensation of the people you're with,
mm-hmm.
you have your organization represents the true middle class.
Absolutely.
In Suffolk County. Without question.
Absolutely. So our average salary, there are people that earn more and there are people that earn less. But when you mix it all together, our average salary, take home cash in hand, is about $45,000 a year. So, when you speak in generalities to people about the public employee, that's not the number that comes to mind. And these are not the jobs that people think about. And when I start getting into the specifics and say, well, how do you feel about crossing guards? I know you don't like, I said a civil servant. You didn't like that reaction, in talking to general man on the street kind of situation. But when I get into specifics, the crossing guards, social services and some of the unique services going on there, medical examiners. Everybody knows medical examiners now, and everybody seems to agree. The same. No, that's necessary. That has to be done. And then when you get into some of the compensation package, they're very surprised because the myth that's out there, just like the myth that surrounds what you guys do for a living, in representing and being elected to represent and advocate for people. It's also kind of misunderstood and misrepresented what the public employee does. So public employee has a very negative connotation, but in reality, necessary service is essential. Yeah,
I think the example you gave of the crossing guard is probably perfect. In the abstract, that's all those people are bad. Then everyone not only loves their crossing guard, they know the person's name.
Sure.
They take care of their kids. And when I look at these things, my mother worked in family court for 28 years.
Yeah.
And I think, okay, what do I need? What do I want from my mom? And frankly, I'm a public employee, so
sure.
I want a decent pension. I want good health benefits.
Sure.
So I look at through maybe it's a selfish prism every now and then, but I do think, what's wrong with making sure you take good care of people? Should you have good eye care, good dental, good maternity leave, family leave, things like that? All those things are important. And in the big scheme of things, it's really not a lot of money when you look at the overall cost of the government.
Because there's that trade-off.
Yeah.
When you talk about a public employee, if you had a comparable job in the private sector, that private sector job would probably pay more but come with less benefits. And what government has done is leverage their numbers to get a good benefits package so that they can save the taxpayers on the benefits and also on the salary, because it will make sense for people to show up and do their job and do it well, maybe for a little bit less than the private sector does, because the benefits package is there.
No question about it. And every now and then I think I'm reminded, and so are my colleagues, you have to do the right thing in spite of the fact that a lot of people don't always know what that is.
Correct.
You and I get it because we talk about it. You and I get it because
Yeah.
I'm working for the state, you're working with the county. But every now and then we have to go out to the public and say, yeah, these people are actually pretty darn important. Don't forget that.
Right. Yeah. Something we're trying to fold into this show every week is a little bit about our members and what they do. And because, as you referenced earlier, we're large and we're diverse, there's no easy way to summarize us. So I'm going to each week have just a little segment about someone in our union. They'll talk about what their specific job duty is, what their department or division does, so that people understand what their tax burden goes towards and what a value there is in that.
One other thing I would love to throw in, because sometimes people don't see this with the Republican Party.
Right.
I'm a strong believer in labor, strong believer in working men and women, and I'm a very strong believer in collective bargaining. If you take the diversity of your workforce,
right,
why shouldn't you have the capacity or the opportunity to sit down and say, all right, this is what we're looking for? And perhaps more important, your men and women are doing the work. So if you're going to ask, do we need more money for parks? Do we need more money in research? Do we need more money in the medical examiner's office? Nobody knows it better than the people who are actually doing the work.
I certainly agree. And, there's been a little bit of back and forth in Suffolk County on the county legislative side of things. As projects become necessary, it becomes a question of whether or not outside agencies should do the work or internal people should do the work? Should we bond, to finance this project, or how can these things be done? And I've been talking on both sides of the aisle. Just simply, or very similarly to yourself. Things don't get done without everybody and talking to everybody. But I've been talking to both sides of the aisle and saying, listen, involve us in the conversation. It's useful for you in making your decision-making process. Something that I've always valued with you is that you value our input, wanting to know what the employees are thinking. And in that respect, we can certainly be helpful in Suffolk County as well in saying, hey, listen, it doesn't make sense to hit the taxpayers for an outside agency to do something your internal guys can do. Or, that's out of our purview and you need a specialist in this instance, or there simply isn't enough people to get it done, or whatever else, to add our voice to the conversation. And, I think those people that get it use it as a management tool. It is not seen as an adversarial thing. We don't always agree, and not every time do we ask for something that can that thing be done, but neither are we the enemy, nor is necessarily management.
Yeah, I think one of the things that often gets lost in government is the ability to listen, no matter what it is. Now, I work for the state, you work for the county, but we have a partnership, and I think it's important to remember too. And this affects your members very directly. Yeah. It doesn't matter what level of government it is; it's the same taxpayer.
Yes.
So if the bus routes are working in Suffolk County, that's good for Nassau County and Long Island and the state of New York. Sure. And whether it's the federal government or anywhere else. Right. Nobody likes paying taxes. It's like nobody likes buying insurance or writing a will and stuff like that. But the reality is, if you want all the services, I just think of places like county parks.
Sure.
We have beautiful state parks, but we have incredibly beautiful county parks. Those are like jewels within the system that we should be paying attention to. I know you do, but that's the kind of thing you want to. I love talking about things for the state of New York, and the same thing extends here in Suffolk County.
Sure. And, we talked not too long ago with one of our members, very familiar with the Parks Department, and the tens of thousands of permits issued every year. When an individual goes to the park, they experience the park, they know what's going on, but the broader community maybe doesn't understand that there's more to maintaining a park than opening the gate in the morning and closing it at night. So I think that's very valuable for us to have in our elected officials, because you need to understand more than just our perspective. And it's very valuable that you do understand our perspective, but you also understand the people in your community and the different diverse points of view and lifestyles. You've got the common problem across the board where, a business leader may have a different perspective than another business leader, and they all have valid points and they need to be listened to. So it's a tremendous task, and it's something, again, I know I'm going a little heavy-handed here, but I do have to thank you for taking the time. You've always taken the time to speak with us, and I know your book is always full of people you have to listen to, and then on top of that, get the work done.
Yeah, but I think it's again, I'll reiterate the notion of listening, because we're generalists. I've developed some expertise in education in certain areas, but how the heck am I going to know about pathology? What am I going to know about crossing guards? What am I going to know about social services unless I'm listening to the people who are actually doing it? And I think I've cut my teeth in a couple of good ways, one of which is an ability to listen. Sure. And, I'm very, very grateful for the continued partnership we have. And you know what? Sometimes you and I both know this. It's not easy.
No.
It's not easy.
No.
People's expectations are gigantic, and sometimes the wallet doesn't always match. I'll just, going back to the parks for a second.
Yeah.
I remember talking to folks who were saying, we have these beautiful, expansive parks. Well, you want to prevent loitering. You want to prevent unnecessary garbage and things like that. And yet you only have a few officers for the whole system.
Correct.
Countywide.
Correct.
Suffolk County is a pretty big place, as you and I both know.
Absolutely.
And yet if you say to somebody, well, we have to hire these people, they go, why? Well, because you want to maintain the beauty of these places.
We've got about 150 people maintaining acres and acres of parkland scattered all throughout Suffolk County. And sure, you see them more often, and they're occupied in the summer months when people are using it, but there is prep work that goes on from the fall straight through to the end of the spring just to get the summer months ready to go.
I also think, too, it's important to recognize the value of the environmental services that your teams provide.
Sure.
Water quality, just maintaining a pristine environment throughout Suffolk County. Everyone takes that kind of work very seriously, and certainly with our water supply here.
Yes.
That should always be paramount, and we're fortunate to have that as well.
Absolutely. We've got a great team, industrial waste over at Public Works, and they monitor all of those facilities, all of those manufacturing facilities of any sort to make sure that there's no objectionable waste going into the ground and causing contamination. And there's mechanisms due to, thoughtful implementation of the rules. There are mechanisms in place to catch somebody if they do something bad, and mechanisms to deter that behavior across the board. So just backing up a little bit and talking about this past session, something happened on the federal level. The Supreme Court made some adjustments to the interpretation of the Constitution, and it affected public sector unions. And in New York State, the state saw this coming and put some protections in place for all of its workers. And I know that you were very instrumental in all of that, but not everybody, as is usual, not everybody always agrees or sees the issue the same way. And I know that was quite a struggle there, just to make sure that there were certain protections put into place in the state of New York. And namely, one of the things that we're very grateful for now that this interpretation has changed is the fact that if someone opts not to join the union, they also wouldn't receive the benefits that the union provides, and that's very unique for the state of New York. And I think we were the leader on that, and this had to pass, across your desk to get done.
We had huge discussions on this subject.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to date myself a little bit, but you're going to appreciate it. The case was commonly referred to as Janus.
Yeah.
And you go to the average person, when you say Janus,
no idea.
They think of Janis Joplin.
Right.
Not thinking about a Supreme Court case. They think of a name that they know. And I think the good thing, in fact, I know the good thing was we didn't wait.
Right.
We didn't wait for the court case. We were able to negotiate this, get it done in March, and not, I guess we, instead of crashing on the beach, we figured out how to ride the wave into the beach.
And I gotta commend you guys because you did it in such a smart way that if the ruling had gone another way, it would change absolutely nothing in the state of New York.
Yeah.
So it only ended up being implemented in a way that if this ruling went the way it did, it would have a positive effect for union members. But if there was nothing else, so that's just, I guess, another aspect of your job and what you have to do is to find common sense solutions, almost like the Hippocratic Oath. First, do no harm.
Yeah.
Correct?
And sometimes that's tough in government.
So, again, Senate Majority Leader John Flanagan joining us this morning. And Senator, I want to thank you for coming here and speaking with us and letting people know a little bit about some inside information on your work and what you do for the people in Suffolk County. Okay, and thanks for joining us again this morning. We're joined by Don Daly. He's a Suffolk County employee and AME member. Don, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me today, Dan.
So I'd like to speak to you a bit about Suffolk County Parks Department. I imagine there's more to it than opening a gate in the morning. First off, what kind of parks are we talking about? Campgrounds, beaches, golf?
Well, Dan, we've got a lot of parks for the Suffolk County residents. We're involved in golf, camping, horseback riding, swimming, hiking, fishing, beach activities, boating. We have historic services, historic sites, Sagda Coast Manor, the Van Borgendine House in West Babylon. We have a lot of historic sites. Yeah, we maintain the Suffolk County Parks Department maintains 50,000 acres of parkland, and that land includes 14 major active parks with numerous facilities, 4 golf courses, 4 marinas. We have 11 campgrounds. We have bay and oceanfront beaches, boating facilities, nature trails, and bird sanctuaries, and nature preserves.
Wow, that is a massive reach. And can you, off the top of your head, do you know how many employees there are to maintain all of this?
All of that work takes place with less than 150 people.
Wow, that is massive.
And it's done through efficiency, and the way that our workers are handling their duties it's incredible, and it comes down from the administrative people in Sayville at our headquarters in West Sayville to the men in the field. The coordination of the material, getting everybody what they need to do their jobs, handling the permits, the green keys, and getting the manpower what they need to do the work
I would
in the field
imagine
level.
there's a lot of planning that goes into that. I mean, you need to know before the season hits all the things you're going to need and what problems you have. So somebody's got to go out and inspect all of these facilities in advance of the season starting.
Absolutely. A lot of people think that the Suffolk County parks are a seasonal thing, that it's operational between Memorial Day and Labor Day, and that's really not the case. The majority of our Suffolk residents enjoy those facilities most during those times, but the action takes place in between that.
Year round.
Year round. It's building, rebuilding, and maintaining.
So you mentioned permits earlier, and so you talk about the green keys and whatever else, but all of that stuff has got to be processed. Someone's got to, obviously the individual that wants the permit has got to submit the form, and then someone's got to vet that information. That's all got to go through various checks and balances before the permit gets issued. And when you're talking 150 people, all of these different parks, all of these different types of parks, and then the amount of parks they are, what are we talking about in addition to all of that on permits? What's the volume on those permits?
Well, the permits issued for the Suffolk County Parks Department are upwards of 42,000 permits a year.
Wow!
It's an incredible undertaking, and probably between 100 and 160,000 are advanced reservations for camping and rounds of golf that are done through our computer system, through the green key system, our reservation key system.
Right, that is certainly amazing. That's an undertaking and a half right there. And again, I think you said it well earlier, where there's administrative functions, and then they're right down to the guys with the boots on the grounds getting this done. I mean, this thing, it has to work like clockwork, essentially, to handle all these various locations, all these diversities. And you talk about maintaining a golf course. That's a totally different thing than handling something with a waterway, and that would be so totally different than maintaining campgrounds. And
yeah, it's the specialty training that our workers have. The golf course guys are amazing. That's, like you said, that's an art form, maintaining a golf course.
Yeah.
But the guys that maintain the trails are environmental guys that maintain our hiking trails, the guys that keep our parks clean, the guys that make the place beautiful when the people drive in. They're getting it done every day, and it's incredible. And the camaraderie that they have between themselves is amazing too. It's good to see.
I would imagine, yeah. I mean, because you're essentially working on a very tight schedule. With a very specific task, with a group of people year in, year out. I mean, like you said, it's not just during the certain months. And as I alluded to earlier, it is not as simple as just opening a gate in the morning and saying, come enjoy this park. I mean, so much goes into this. Absolutely.
Communication is the key. And that takes place between supervision and the workers, and between the workers and their co-workers. Everybody knows where they're going to be. Everybody tries to be on the same page, and we use everything from just walkie-talkies to the technology with the computer registration, right, and everything to get into this century and try to do more with less. Unfortunately,
listen, I get that, and that is, I think, a real testament to what you guys did. The whole Parks Department has done a phenomenal job year in and year out. And, it's a feature of Suffolk County, something that the taxpayers enjoy and have access to. And it's being done, I don't want to say on a shoestring, but it's certainly very tight, and you say doing more with less, trying to leverage whatever you can out of the technology and keeping the communication going so that everybody's where they need to be when they need to be to get this thing going. And it's certainly it touches other departments as well. I mean, you can't efficiently operate a park if there is a massive mosquito infestation. So you've got to coordinate with vector control. I mean, there's got to be times of the year where public work gets involved, or you guys get involved with public works to kind of help mitigate weather situations around the park. So.
There's many occasions where we coordinate with the parks and DPW to work on issues together, and that's another thing where it's becoming more commonplace that departments are working between themselves and not just the Parks Department and DPW. There's more sharing of duties and departments helping each other out.
Right, and that's again, I guess that's stretching the taxpayers' dollars. So, Don, I want to thank you again just for coming down and speaking to me about the Parks Department. So I want to talk to you a little bit about AME and being an AME member. And I just, we had been spending the past few weeks talking about the Janus ruling on the Supreme Court level and how that may have an effect here in Suffolk County, across the state of New York, and across the entire nation. And we've gotten a lot of feedback that people are feeling empowered by the union movement now, and that there is a backlash to what some of these corporate interests have attempted to do, silence the voice of the common everyday man. And we've seen it with another ruling on the Supreme Court where they attempted to they successfully removed class action status from many people that are employed across this country, and the only way that they would regain class action status is to join a union. And then, again, obviously touching on this Janus situation, but I certainly have an opinion of what it means to be an AME member, but I like to get individuals' takes on it. So if you wouldn't mind just letting me know a little bit about what your experience is as an AME member, union member, and county employee.
Well, as far as AME and unionism goes, I got involved with AME as soon as I became a county employee. I came from the outside. I was an electrician with Local 25 previously, and so I was brought up in the union movement. My dad was a union member. My uncles were union members. So that was always a thing in my family. It was always something that was talked about. And it was something that we believed in. We believed in that as a family, and so when I became a Suffolk County employee, I wanted to be involved with the union, and as soon as I was able to, I got involved. AME has been great. It's been a great experience. I've been able to work with a lot of great people. I've been able to be on the board of directors. I'm a unit president. I'm able to represent for my members, and I feel like I'm part of something bigger than myself as a union member.
Yeah, and you certainly are. Don, I appreciate you coming down and speaking with us today, and thank you to all of our listeners for joining us this morning. Please join us next week, 7:30 a.m. for Suffolk Matters on Walk 97.5.